Hey all, I'd like to do a quick command line video and explain what the command line is. This was a question from one of my students and I decided, you know what, let's make this into an actual video. A lot of developers use the command line to pretty much do their web development. So if you're not familiar with the command line or how to use it, in this little tutorial I'm about to explain. So if you notice here, I'm on my MacBook, and essentially the terminal or the command line is something that comes with most Macs. If I scroll down here, you can see I've got my dock, which is just huge here. And essentially, like, I've got it hidden by default because I don't like to have all this space taken up by the dock. So if you wanted to configure your dock, you could just go over to System Preferences like I have, and then click Dock. And then of course, actually I like to have it on the left-hand side. And I'm just going to go ahead and click left here. And it's because I have it hidden, I have this check mark here. But if I uncheck it, you can see it comes to the side like this. By default, it looks probably like that for you guys. But I am going to go ahead and put it to the left because that's what I prefer. And then I'm also going to make the icons very small and then have magnification so that when I move over my mouse it looks kind of cool like this. And then of course I'm going to automatically hide and show the dock for now. So that's why it looks like it does on mine. Next up, I'm going to talk about how to get to the terminal. So what you're going to want to do is click on the Finder folder, and you're going to want to click on Applications. If you don't see this here, make sure that in your Finder you go over to Preferences, and on your sidebar you just check the Applications. And so once you get to Applications and you can see it, you basically want to scroll all the way down until you get to the Utilities folder. From the Utilities folder you want to go over to Terminal, and then next you want to drag this over to your dock. So you may have hidden it or not, like I did. You may have customized your dock, but in any case, make sure that once you've got your dock customized to your correct liking, go ahead and drag this terminal over and make sure it's like stuck in between somewhere here. If you drag it on top of another app, you may accidentally open the app. Okay, so that gives us a little terminal. Now let's figure out what this actually does. So I'm going to click on Terminal, and by default you'll probably see something that looks a lot like what I have here. Mine is a little slightly different because I've already customized my terminal a couple times, and I'm trying to mimic the way it probably looks on your computer. You probably have smaller text than I do, and your background is probably white to begin with, but by default it should show you information about your computer. We call this your information about your computer's name, and then also you'll see this squiggly line, and then of course your user profile name, whatever that might be, along with the date and time. So again, this will look different for you, but essentially it looks basically the same. I try to make it look almost exactly the same. So the terminal is basically where people go to access files and folders using just basically keyboard commands. This is pretty much how it was in the old day. Right now I'm hovering over the Finder on my Mac, and if I click this, you'll see I have basically a menu kind of item thing that shows me all the files and folders I have on my computer. And I'm going to go ahead and click on this thing that says VJ Extreme. That's just my username, but if you look, it kind of matches with this thing here. So I'm going to type a command here now on my terminal, and I'd like you to follow along if you can, and just type in ls. And ls basically lists all the files and folders in my little terminal, or also, like you see here, I have the same files and folders here: add lim, applications, bin, desktop documents, downloads. So this basically matches up with this. If I type the command pwd, that tells me I'm in my folder users followed by VJ Extreme. And it's the same here. I have VJ Extreme, and if I look down, if I right click on this, actually that's how I got to this menu. If I right click on this, it says users, then Macintosh HD, and then MacBook Air. So the top folder is this HD, and you can get there by basically using the command cd. However, if you type cd by itself, you won't cd to anywhere. Basically, cd means change directory. So if you want to move up a directory, you have to do 2 dots. And then if you notice over here, this has gone from being a squiggly line to users. It's the same as if I had just gone over here and clicked users like that. See how this changed here? So users, then VJ Extreme. And then I can get back here. However, I can go also back here. So the cd dot dot, and remember it's a space, cd space dot dot, allows me to travel back and forth through directories. Also, actually the cd space dot dot only allows me to go backwards. If I wanted to go forwards, I would need to type in the name of my directory. So we can do that by typing ls again. And then here's my usernames directory. Remember, again, it's going to be different for you. So you're going to want to type in cd followed by the name of your directory. In mine, it's going to be VJ Extreme. And I'm just going to hit tab on my keyboard to get completion. So I'll press enter, and now I'm back again at this squiggly line. You can see it right there. Okay, so that's basically how this terminal works. It allows you to travel in between files and folders without using a mouse. And in the old days, people used to do this because that was their way of remotely accessing files and folders from other computers. And even then, like even now, people still do this when they are accessing other servers, especially servers where they are uploading a lot of their website files to. So you'll want to become comfortable with the terminal. The terminal is also where you'll be doing a lot of file creation and file removal. So if I type in cd again, and this time I type in desktop, that will move me over to desktop. You can see that here. And then if I type in ls, you can notice that nothing comes back because my desktop is very clean. However, if you type ls on your computer, you may see a whole bunch of files and folders. So I'm going to use another command, and we're going to call this touch. And I'm going to type in index.html. And if you notice, a file just got created here. And if I open it, this file has nothing in it. It's a blank index.html page. However, we can edit this page by just typing nano. This is another key command line command that you can use, and this will allow me to edit that index.html file. Remember, you have to type in the name of the file to edit it. So then I can go in here, and this basically brings up a nice little text editor, but it's built into the command line. So I'll just type in some basic HTML here. And if you've ever used something like Sublime Text or Dreamweaver or any of those tools, you probably are used to typing your HTML in those things. And for the most part, when I do web development, I use Sublime Text. However, you can do web development inside the Nano editor. So I'm just going to show that to you for demonstration purposes. So here I've created a simple web page. And if you look over here, it says hit Control X on your keyboard to exit. So I'm going to do that, Control X. But before I can exit, it says save modified buffer. So that basically means, do you want to save this index.html file? So I'm going to hit Y for yes, and it's going to say file name to write. So I'm going to hit enter for index.html. At this point, I could rename it here. I could say index.1, but I choose not to. I'm just going to hit enter. And if I go back and click on this thing again, and I open it, I have hello world here. So you can see that the command line is very useful for doing a lot of file creation, a lot of file manipulation. If I wanted, I could go in here and I could say cp, which allows me to copy the index.html file and create another index.html file. We'll call it index2 this time. And now I've got a different file called index2. And this is cool because this is index2, and if I go over to index.html, by default, they both say hello world. I can use nano again, followed by index2.html, and I use tab for completion. And I can say hello user this time. And I'll hit Control X again, Y to save, Enter to save. And this time, if I open this page, I have hello user. And of course, when I go back to index.html, I have hello world. And then finally, I can use the rm command. Be careful with this. But I can use it to delete files off of my desktop if I choose. So I'm going to say rm along with the name of the file index2, and there you go. That index.2 is gone. Remember though, the rm command completely deletes the file from your computer, so if you're not sure, you may want to stick with the safe way of just dragging with your mouse and then putting it in your recycling bin like this. So takeaways, key takeaways here. Command line, this is basically how you get started. You use the terminal, it's in your applications folder, and you'll want to go down to utilities, and you'll want to make sure you drag it over to your desktop. Then next, you want to make sure you're familiar with using basic commands like ls, which lists everything in your file folder. As you can see, I'm in my desktop, so if I wanted to go back to the profile or the beginning part, I could either close this or I could just cd up. So if I cd up with 2 dots, remember if I just do cd dot by this, it doesn't change the directory. It has to be cd up with 2 dots. That changes the actual directory I'm in. So if I want to go back to where I started, I would use cd followed by the name of my directory, and then I'm back here. Note, you can also use cd squiggly line to get to the same directory. So let's say if I cd out of here and cd out of here, and I go back to the root directory, I type ls, you'll see that I'm actually 2 levels up, and you'll see that I'm here at the hard drive. This is pretty much the same as me going 2 levels here and then going over to this area here. But if I ever wanted to get back, I could just use the squiggly line, and that would take me back to my squiggly line directory. And typing in the pwd command will show me that I'm indeed in my /user/vjextreme directory. So if you ever get lost, always remember squiggly line is basically where you want to be. Finally, before I go, I'm going to just show you how to customize your profile, your terminal. You may be wondering how you can make this more user-friendly. If I click on terminal, and be sure that you're actually in terminal, otherwise if you click out here on Finder, you may not actually see it. So you want to click terminal and then click preferences. And then it's going to by default take you to general, but I'm in profiles. If you click the profiles page here, it'll show you basic, homebrew, grass, ocean. You can choose homebrew, but I like to style mine. And I'm going to make this just black here. So you'll notice here that my terminal turned black. And the reason I choose to make it black is because I'm a fan of The Matrix, which is that cool movie from long, long ago about Neo and Morpheus. And if you remember, there were green letters and black screen. So I like to make it look kind of like that and pretend like I'm Neo. What guy doesn't do that? Okay, by the way, you may want to change the font too. I have it at Menlo, which is something I prefer, and you may want to bump it up to 18 or 14 size if you can't see this. Preferably make it something that you can read. Finally, you may want to play around with the blinking cursor, and then of course if you click on background again, you can change the opacity. I prefer to keep it down around 80%. Or actually, let's make it 70%, because then it's still cool but not super distracting. When you're ready, go ahead and click default, and then that'll go ahead and save this. So the next time you come over here, you open it, and it looks very nice. Okay, that was a quick tutorial on the terminal. I hope you liked it. Stay tuned for some terminal tricks next up.